Fox News is back on top. The network reportedly reassumed its position in the #1 primetime cable spot last week after MSNBC took over the spot as the country's leading network as the indictment of Donald Trump caused ratings to soar, according to Nielsen media data. Fox News averaged 1,664,000 viewers from June 12th to June 16th, with MSNBC averaging 856,000 and CNN averaging 628,000.
Tucker Carlson's old 8 p.m. spot at the network will now be filled by Jesse Waters, who originally worked as a production assistant on The O'Reilly Factor at 24 years old. Now, according to the Daily Mail, his current show, Jesse Waters Primetime, began airing last year, has an average of 2.6 million viewers per night. Fox News has also reportedly fired all of Tucker Carlson's staffers who were still at the network following his ousting. But according to Mediaite, the 8 staffers that remained at the network were let go, though they could receive, quote, enhanced severance if they stayed until July 14th. And then they still do have the ability to apply for other positions at Fox News. So it's not necessarily that they've all been shown the door. They might be ultimately moved to other shows. Several of the producers did. One of them departed, one or two of them departed with Fox, or with Tucker himself. And then another was let go after that Chiron thing from last week.
Oh, right.
Sounds like he did that.
Right.
So the lineup is shifting thusly. They haven't actually really added a new person. They're just kind of moving people around a little bit. Laura Ingraham, who was later in the evening, she was after Hannity. She's now going to go first at 7, and then at 8 it's going to be Jesse Waters. 9 is Hannity. I think I'm getting this right. And then Gutfeld is going to move a little bit earlier. So they're moving people to slightly different time slots, but it's not like this is the new person, new star with a new show. It's the same shows and people who've just been slightly reorganized.
So what do you take from this? The fact that Jesse Waters is in the Tucker Carlson slot, does that suggest that he is the biggest draw, that he is considered to be within Fox News the most marketable person? Is he really a bigger draw than someone like Laura Ingraham or Gutfeld? My understanding was that Gutfeld also had one of the highest ranking shows.
Gutfeld is huge, absolutely huge. He's a kind of comedian by trade. I like the guy. I'm friendly with him. I've been on a show a number of times. It's wildly successful. It has a kind of late night vibe. That's how he sees it. So I don't think he would want to be necessarily any earlier than like 10 or something. I think that's where he feels he does his best work. Also, both Gutfeld and Jesse and a couple other people, they rotate who's doing the 5 p.m. show. So they're both on twice an evening anyway. Jesse Waters, what I will say about him that I like is that he has been very good on privacy issues relating to tech, things of that nature. He grilled Lindsey Graham on one of their banned TikTok bills that would could theoretically would give the government. It was like a new Patriot Act, essentially, for the internet. It was so misguided. And he's been really leaning into that stuff, which I like. Obviously, he has. I don't think he's exactly in a Tucker Carlson mode necessarily. We'll have to see how more of his foreign policy ideas develop. I've been watching a lot lately, and it's a lot of focus on Hunter Biden and Trump and what's going on, kind of the news from a conservative standpoint. But I think he's a talented individual.
By that choice of all of the people on the Fox News lineup, if you were asked the day after Tucker Carlson left who you expected to be his replacement, is Jesse Waters a name that would have come to mind?
Well, he already had a show, so if I was thinking they were going to have to find another person to add to the roster. But if they're just kind of rearranging the people they do have, he's clearly a big star and a big draw and is, doing well and has had a pretty meteoric rise from being a sort of production assistant, doing these kind of like man on the street videos for Bill O'Reilly back in the day. Yeah,
I was going to mention, I think I first heard of Jesse Waters after he did a Man on the Street style segment in Chinatown in New York, for which he was broadly criticized and for which he ultimately offered an apology. I think that was back during the 2016
I believe
cycle.
He apologized on O'Reilly's show. Yeah,
right. Because the blowback was significant. It's interesting to consider whether or not an apology would have been forthcoming today, given that we're in a very different place in terms of what flies publicly. Wokeness, anything that smells of an apology or sensitivity to other people's culture is. I don't know that apologizing is woke.
Well, it shouldn't be. People should apologize.
I think
if they
that
screw up,
today,
but
the idea of doing a segment, and look, I'm saying this very neutrally. I just think the reality is today, if you went to and did a segment where you kind of talked about, you asked random Chinese Americans in Chinatown, like, is it the year of the dragon? And can I get a foot massage? Back then, there was a general consensus that was trading in very flat cultural stereotypes in a way that was prejudicial. Today, I think you'd get a lot of people defending it, saying, hey, there's foot massage places in Chinatown. I can't ask about them. Why are you being so sensitive? This is woke. Maybe you disagree, but I have a hard time believing that this would be seen as objectionable today as it was then. But the point is, at the time, many folks thought that was kind of going to be the end of his political arc. It seems like it was just the beginning.
Yeah, he's. There's no question. He's the guy now. He's in that really famous 8 p.m. slot, and we'll have to see where it goes from there. So he recently shared some comments about President Barack Obama's American perspective. Let's play those.
Well, when you're the citizen of the world, you always think about the world instead of the United States. Remember, this is a guy whose father has roots in Africa. This is a guy who spent a lot of his childhood in Southeast Asia. Is that right? I think it's right. And then
he ate a dog, Jesse.
I didn't bring that up, but I'm glad you did. And then spent a lot of time in Hawaii. Was that the last state to get a star on the flag? Not so sure about that, but he's never really looking at things from an American perspective. He's always speaking to the world. Even when he's speaking to us, he's appealing to the world.
Yeah, so I mean, that feels like a little bit of the vintage.
I don't know how recent this clip actually was, though. I don't. Well, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like a little bit of the vintage Jesse Waters that I once knew. This clip was apparently from earlier this week. I would say it used to be a thing that folks thought of as a positive, that you would have a leader that had a global perspective, maybe one that spoke other languages or had a comfort and ease in other parts of the world from a negotiation perspective. That seems like a benefit, especially if you want an anti-war president who's not going to stumble into conflicts because of making certain kinds of faux pas. It should go without saying that it doesn't matter what order a state joined the United States of America. It is America. I'm sure there's plenty of Native Hawaiians that would love that not to be, not the trajectory of the country, not to be the imperialist trajectory that it was, but it is in fact a part of the United States of America. And having lived abroad, as someone who also lived abroad, I was born in Washington, D.C., and I would like someone to tell me that I am insufficiently American because I had the privilege of having some other kinds of experiences in my youth. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of commentary that...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of President Obama's views, obviously, or his policies. I don't think it's because they originate from some other place. There are plenty of bad
those foreign
views.
Hawaiian ideologies infecting the mind palace of our great president, Barack Obama.
His thinking is too Hawaiian. What would your thinking be if it was too Hawaiian? It'd be too
It would be laid back and anti-war and delightful. I wish you were. I wish you spent a little bit more time in Hawaii.
Is that the Tulsi vibe?
In some respects, although she also has some discrete, unique things about her upbringing that were separate and apart from Hawaii. But she grew up in, I understand, a very kind of conservative, religiously conservative environment, and had some views that she later divested from, shall we say. But that's neither here nor there. It will be interesting to see how Jesse Waters fares in that spot, whether or not he is subject to any kind of constraint or controls, the likes of which Tucker Carlson has ultimately said that he was under, or if he really picks up the mantle of Trumpism without the Trump, as it was described in one New York Times article, I think, who really astutely characterized Tucker Carlson as embodying something of this movement that was separate apart from Donald Trump and is able to exist in this liminal space where he had a lot of credibility without tying himself directly to Trump, but almost captured the energy of why Trump was popular without needing to wed himself to that particular man. And it's something that he's really running with now that he's completely free from Fox News, where, as we know from the Dominion lawsuit disclosures, they had a lot of concerns about losing their audience if they went too negative against Donald Trump. So it'll be really interesting to watch, see what happens.
Yeah, we will be watching, and we hope you'll keep watching us. More Rising right after this.